Hello and welcome to this week's Wednesday Word. Today we're going to look at Psalm 107. And the psalm starts in verses 1 and 2. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story, those he redeemed from the hand of the foe. There are a lot of really interesting parallels in this psalm to Pastor Tim's last point on Sunday, where we talked about the three-step process to share your story, where you share what your life was like before you met Jesus, and then you share what it was like when you encountered Jesus, and then you share how your life has changed after encountering Jesus. And we see this psalm as a psalm of thanksgiving, and in verse 2 it says, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. And it's similar to Pastor Tim's, what he used in his sermon when he says, found people find people. And in this psalm, it's out of thankfulness. They're so thankful that the Lord delivered them that they're going to go and tell someone else about this deliverance that they received and how it changed their life. I also think this psalm's really interesting because there's 4 different patterns throughout the psalm, and it kind of points back to that 3-step process where before you met Jesus, when you encountered Jesus, and after you encountered Jesus. So for the first of the 4 examples that the psalm gives, it says, some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. So this is the first part where before they met Jesus or before they were delivered. And then the psalm says, then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. So this is when you met Jesus, essentially, or when they were delivered. And then it talks about how Jesus can deliver us, or how they were delivered in their situation. It says, he led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. And then the response to that deliverance is, let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. He satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. So then, since they're delivered from their hunger and thirst, then they were able to tell other people about their deliverance from this hunger and thirst. And similarly, we are delivered from our sins, and we can go likewise and tell people about our deliverance from our sins and how Jesus was the one who saved us. And the psalm follows the same patterns with 3 more examples. Verse 10, it talks about being prisoners. Verse 17, it talks about being ill. And verse 23, it talks about being in a storm at sea. And all of these cases are similar in that in each case they're facing a problem or struggling with something, and death is near, and they cry out to the Lord. And when they cry out to the Lord delivers them. And then once the Lord delivers them, they all echo the same statement, let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. And this echoes the start of the psalm where it says in verse 1, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, his love endures forever. And then the very next verse after that is, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story, those he redeemed from the hand of the foe. So a response to God saving us should be thankfulness. We should thank him for the amazing work of salvation that he worked for us. But we should also, in light of that, go and tell this story of deliverance to other people so that they too can be delivered from their sins and see the glory of God. I think it's really common for us to be so comfortable in our lives that we forget the wonderful thing that Jesus did for us on the cross. I know I'm not nearly as thankful as I should be, but I also know that I don't share the gospel as much as I should because I'm not as thankful as I should be. So I think that's something that we can all work on, being more thankful for what God did for us. And a response to that is sharing our thankfulness of what God did for us with other people so that they too can be delivered just as we were.